Hi everyone, I'm Jack, and my partner is Bailey, Philip, and Ethan Wong. So today we're gonna go over through like the four types of neurons in our body, and we're gonna show our models and explain the function. Let's start. So now I'm gonna share about the multipolar neurons. So as you see, multipolar neurons is the most common type of neuron in the human nervous system. It has one axon and two or more dendrites, usually many dendrites that receives signals. And its unique features are multi-dendrites allow a multipolar neuron to receive inputs from many other neurons. And single long axon transmits signals to other neurons, muscle, or glands. And they are structured for integration and communication, especially in complex pathways. And number three, where are the multipolar neurons found? And what are some classification for multipolar neurons? So they are classified into motor neurons, carry signals from the central nervous system to muscles and glands. And they are also found in interneurons, found in the central nervous system, involved in processing and coordinating information. So what are the functions of the multipolar neuron in the nervous system? Because they have many dendrites, as you see, multipolar neurons collect a lot of informations. They play a major role in controlling body movement and responding to sensory input. And I'm gonna give some real life example for our multipolar neurons. So imagine you want to move your arm to wave like that. Oh, you cannot see like that. So the motor cortex of your brain signals a multipolar motor neuron. The neurons sends the signal down the spinal cord through peripheral nerves, and the signal reaches your arm muscles, triggering the movements. So actually, the multipolar neurons contributes a lot in our daily movement and central thinking. And now I'm gonna go over through the structures of multipolar neurons. So the first, the cell body, or called soma, is here. The restings around the white ball, which is the nucleus, and its function is to contain the cell's nucleus, processes incoming signals from the dendrites, and acts as a control center of the neuron. And next, I'm gonna go over through the structures of nucleus, which is the white ball, like here in the center. So the nucleus is located inside the cell body, and its function is to contain DNA and controls the cell's activity. And number three, I'm gonna go over through the dendrites, which is the branches here, the restings here. So the functions, the dendrites are the branch-like structures extending from the cell body, and its function is to receive signals from the other neurons. The more dendrites, the more inputs the neuron can receive. So multipolar neurons actually contains many dendrites, like multiple dendrites, which means like it can transfer many things and receive many signals at a time. So number three, and I'm gonna go over through the axon, which is a red thing in between the blue substance, like here in the middle. So the axon is a long, thin fiber extending from the cell body, which is like the long here, the red things. And its function is to carry electrical impulses away from the neuron. And next, I'm gonna share about go over through the myelin sheath, which is here, the blue things, the outside. So it is a fatty covered wrapped around the axon, and its function is to act as an insulation and helps speed up signal transmission. And Next, I'm gonna go over through the nodes of Rennever, the small gaps between the sections of myelin sheaths, like here, and allow the signal to jump from node to node, and making transformation faster. And next, I'm gonna share about the axon terminal, which is here. It is an end of the axon, releases chemical signals to the next neuron or target cell. And that's the neuron transmitter, which is like here. It is a chemicals stored in the axon terminals, like here, or here is also. They're both neuron transmitter. So it releases into the synapse to carry signals to the other cells. And next, the last, I'm gonna go over through the synapse, the tiny gap between the axon terminal of one neuron and the dendrites or cell body of another, like here. So where neuron transmitters cross to send signals to the next neuron. And the summary is the multipolar neurons have one axon and many dendrites. They are key for motor control and information processing. They are the most abundant neuron type, especially in the brain and the spinal cord. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ethan. Here is my bipolar neuron model. Bipolar neurons are unique for their two distinct projections, one dendrite and one axon, extending from opposite ends of the cell body. This structure allows for the direct and efficient transmission of sensory signals. As the dendrite receives input and the axon transmits it to the central nervous system without passing through the cell body. Here is the cell body. Its central oval-shaped structure from which one axon and one dendrite extend. It contains the nucleus and other organelles and houses the cell's metabolic functions. The nucleus is inside. Here, the white. The nucleus of a bipolar neuron is located within its cell body, which is the metabolic center of the cell. Here's the dendrite. It receives sensory information from the environment, such as light in the eye or smells in the nose. And here is the axon. It transmits this information, the smells or lights, to the next neuron in the pathway, which ultimately leads to the brain. Next are these nodes of Rennever, which are these gaps in the myelin sheath that facilitate rapid saltatory conduction of nerve impulses. Bipolar neuron synapse. They are primarily sensory neurons that transmit information for senses like sight, smell, and balance. Axon terminal is this axon terminals. The axon terminals of bipolar neurons form synapses with other neurons to transmit signals. These yellow clays are the myelin sheath of this bipolar neuron. It can speed up nerve impulse conduction, although this is most prominent on its axons. Last, neuron transmitter. Bipolar neurons in the retina releases glutamate as their primary neuron transmitter. Bipolar neurons are classified as sensory neurons. They work together in sensory pathways by relaying messages from a sensory organ to the brain. Examples included the visual pathway, where they transmit signals from light-sensitive photoreceptor cells to ganglion cells, which they send the visual message to the brain via the optic nerve.
Hi, I'm Philip, and I'll be covering the neuron pseudo unipolar. This neuron is commonly found in sense organs, making most of the pseudo unipolar neurons sense neurons, sending info from the sensory organ to the appropriate part of the brain. What really makes pseudo unipolar neurons unique is that they have a side of their axon that gets information from the sensory neurons, and they have a side of the axon that gives the information from the sensory neurons to the central nervous system. Pardon my outfit change, but we'll be going over the structures of the pseudo-unipolar neuron, which I'll go in the order and way the neuron signal travels. To begin is the synapses, which is the gap between another neuron's axon terminal and this neuron's neurotransmitters, where the electrical signal of the other neuron is converted to a chemical one, which is received by these neurotransmitters, where these neurotransmitters send down the chemical signal through the dendrites and into the soma cell body and then into the nucleus. Well, the dendrites are kind of weird on a pseudo-unipolar atom. They're not really dendrites. They're more of branches of the axon. Well, after that chemical signal is converted into an electrical one by the nucleus, it goes down its axon this time, hitting the myelin sheaths and the nodes of Ranvier, speeding up this process until it hits the axon terminals, where this process starts all over again for another neuron.
Hi, my name is Bailey, and this is my unipolar neuron. Unipolar neurons are classified as sensory neurons. They're usually found in the central nervous system of vertebrates and in cranial nerves of the brain. So they work by sending afferents that transmit somatosensory information to the central nervous system. They're also known as one process. So now we're going to go over the structure of a unipolar neuron. So this is the cell body, and inside we have the nucleus. This is the axon, and right here we have the myelin sheath. In between the myelin sheath, we have nodes of Ranvier. At the edges, we have dendrites, which are also neurotransmitters. Finally, we have the axon terminals.